A, it goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now here we go. Hey, all right, so let's discuss the console wars, right? Matter of fact, specifically, let's discuss me, Optimus Code, and my role in the console wars. Because I always get these bums tweeting at me about, you too old for the console wars. You should be doing this instead, and you should be doing that instead. You too old. All right, look here. Let's go ahead and squash all of this right now in this video right here. What up? All right, so let's get right to this. I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can. So many of y'all know that I am a senior software architect. That means that I've been writing code for a very long time. And I mean, honestly, I am really, really good at it. And they pay me extremely well. I have no complaints about programming or any of that stuff. As a career, programming has really been good to me and my family. But even though I don't have any complaints, it wasn't always smooth sailing. I started learning the program by myself, like I was self-taught initially. And then I met this woman. She used to hang out at our computer user groups. She was awesome. She had written books on programming. It just so happened that she lived near me, and me and the wife would go by. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time. She wasn't my wife yet, but we would go by her house and ask the woman to give me programming lessons. And she had written books on programming, and I had bought those books, and I was trying to work my way through those books, and I was getting confused and just all of this stuff. But she was very patient. Man, everything I have today, really, when it comes to programming and the lifestyle that programming has afforded me, really has come from her, because she taught me so many things about programming and just interacting with other programmers. This whole notion of pair programming, so she was doing this back in the 80s. Like, it's real popular now, right? Pair programming, but that's all we did. Me and her back then was pair programming. She showed me how to do things, but it was like an interactive session, back and forth, me, then her. She would type a line of code, then I would have to finish it, so on and so forth, stuff like that. So she was very instrumental in my development as a software engineer. Then, of course, eventually I went to school for it and all of that good stuff. But here is the thing. So my background, I just had a really just as hood, as street as you could get. Where I grew up at, and the options that were available to me and people like me, it was all about the street enterprises. And that's just it. That's just what everybody did. It's nothing like fabulous. It's nothing to be glorified. It was the only option. And somehow I know how I ended up seeking out programming. I'm not really going to go into it right now because it'll make this video way longer than it needs to be. But I ended up seeking out a programming path. It just so happens that I had a high aptitude for it. And it also happens that I had a really good teacher. So I developed a skill set that was very valuable. And I didn't even know how valuable the skill set was myself. I only got into programming because I wanted to make my own video games. There's a story in there about a competition between me and my wife. Again, she was my girlfriend at the time, but I'll save all that for another day. The main thing is that I ended up developing a very valuable skill set, but the only reason I did it was because I wanted to make my own video game. That was it. That's what got me into programming. Eventually, as I started applying to jobs, and the first programming stuff that I did was a little intern stuff for different professors, my college professors. They had little projects and they would pay you to do it. And I started gaining some recognition there because I was finishing these projects in a really short amount of time, and the code that was written was pretty decent. It wasn't great by any stretch because I don't want to go into the specifics of programming, but let's just say I developed a skill set, but I got way better at it than I was in the beginning. But even in the beginning, where back then what was considered good code then, that stuff, if you look at it today, would be considered horrible code, right? So in the era that I wrote the code was really good. I look at some of that stuff now and I was like, what was I thinking? But I started to gain a certain amount of presence with the faculty and different things, and I just started getting more opportunities to work on more projects, and eventually, like, I just had developed this skill set and this network. But again, keep in mind, my background is as street as it gets. So I ended up working what they would call a real job, right? It wasn't for a college professor or anything. It was me going to an actual job, working with other humans. Some of them were programmers, some of them was not. The place was massive, and they had a programming department, which was really new for back then. And the reason this is relevant is because this was the first time then that I had to interact with my programming skills in a setting that was not an academic setting or me doing stuff at home or with the woman that taught me how to program. So in other words, I had been sheltered all before because my college professors, they saw something in me. They knew my background, and they really wanted to, like, give me a chance to have an opportunity at some things other than the street enterprises. And the woman that taught me to program, she didn't know nothing about my background. She just knew that I was hungry to learn how to program computers. And that was it. Like, those were my environments for a long time. And eventually I entered, like I said, into what's called the real world. And then I had to interact with a whole bunch of people that were very different than me. I mean, very different than me. And like I said before, I had been in a sheltered environment where everything was set up for me to succeed. All my professors wanted me to succeed. The woman that taught me to program, she definitely wanted me to succeed. And of course, I wanted me to succeed. All the hours I spent up late learning how to program and so confused about this and learning binary and converting from binary to hex and back to decimal, and like, oh my goodness, just so much went into learning this stuff and how to work with arrays and memory. And back then you had to manage your own memory, right? So I had to learn to manage the heap and the stack, and I had to allocate my own RAM, and I had to free it up when I was done with it. I learned some assembly programming. It was just like a lot of stuff. I put a lot of effort into it. So I personally was definitely making sure that I was interested in my own success. My teacher, she was definitely into, well, my mentor, I guess I should call her. She was interested in my success. And like I said, all of my professors were definitely, well, except for this one. I'm not going to even talk about this clown, maybe on another video, but he did everything he could to discourage me from being a programmer. And I think it's because, like, he could see the future. Like, he could tell how integral programming would become to our way of life and our civilization. And he did everything he could to try to get me to drop out of programming. But that's another story for another day. So like I said, eventually I was put in an environment where everything wasn't set up for me to succeed. And I just had to deal with, again, what they call the real world. And as fate would have it, obviously I was the only black programmer that was there. And they didn't, I don't even know how many black programmers existed in the world back then, because the total number of programmers, period, wasn't very high. It was maybe, I don't know, maybe between 500 and 3,000 programmers total, like the whole world. It was like a new profession. There wasn't hardly anybody doing it. And it was constantly changing and adapting. And so the total number of programmers, period, was really low. It might have been more than that. Like, it was definitely under 10,000 total. Like, there were not that many programmers in the entire world. If you look at it today, it's something like 200 million programmers. So, like, relatively speaking, it was really, really tiny. And I was black, so I was a very visible anomaly. Number one, there wasn't that many programmers in the first place. And number two, that I was a black programmer was like a double, it shouldn't exist, right? It's like already we got one unique set, and then we got another unique thing in this unique set that is itself already like small. And so I really stuck out like a sore thumb. But like I said, I had gained a high aptitude for it, and people really did respect my skill set, like once they seen it in action. Again, keep in mind though, I'm not understanding how valuable this is. To me, it's just, this is something I'm doing so I can eventually make a video game, because there was no jobs back then for video game programmers. Well, I take that back. There were jobs, but you couldn't go to school. Like if you wanted to be an attorney or a physician, you go to college and they had a track set up and you knew exactly the classes you need to take in order to go into the medical field, or to go into the accounting field, or to go into justice. Like whatever you wanted to do, there was a path already set up in college to take you on the path that you wanted as a career. There was no such thing as that for programming. It was too new. And there especially wasn't one for video game programming. Like nobody knew anything in the colleges and the universities that were specific to video game programming. They didn't know what you would need, what the curriculum should be. So you basically just taught yourself programming. You learned to be really efficient at it so that you could then go get a job, hopefully as a video game programmer. And that's all I did, right? All I focused on was the craft itself. And there was no counselor that I could go to. There was no advisor that could help guide you down the path of video game programming, because there was no such thing. It was just way too new. Okay, so I get in the workplace, and again, I have this skill set that to me, I'm happy that I can do it, but it was like a lot of hard work, and I didn't really know how valuable it was to the world, to the marketplace. And so they hired me at this job, and I looked at the money that they was paying me, and I was like, what? Like, hell yeah, I accept. Like, sign me up? Yes, where do I sign? I definitely want this money that y'all talking about giving me. And one of the things that I noticed right away is that I did not fit into the new workplace that I was so eager to jump into. Like I said, I was the only black person, and well, I wasn't the only black person. There was a janitor that was there. But I was the only black person that was a programmer. And so the way they did it, they had the programming team, and we had our own area of the building. And then they had like basically factory workers and maintenance people and all of this stuff. And the other black guy there, he was a maintenance guy. And what had happened was we, the programmers, were off to ourselves in this area with these cubicles and stuff. And the company that I worked for, they treated the programmers real nice, like extremely nice. And we had like nice benefits. There were a lot of perks, and the people that I worked with, most of the programmers that I worked with there, they were all happy to like welcome me aboard. Especially, once I got my first assignment and they saw how well I did. And so I was a help to the department, right? Like I was an asset. They wanted me around because I was helping get things done. And we had like all these international contracts and writing all this code, doing all of this stuff. But again, that was the programming department. There was only maybe 15 of us total. And then, but there was like 800 or 900 people that worked at the entire place. And so the majority of the other people were not the programmers. And so here is the thing. Because this company treated the programmers really well, the people, we call it on the floor, right? Like we had the area where the programmers work, and then we had the area that we called on the floor. And then that was out where like all the factory stuff was, and all the machinery, just like all of this stuff. It was really loud, like the inventory, the warehouse, like all this stuff forklifts and everything moving all around. And the programmers was off in this other area. Well, as I began to interact with people that were not in the programming department, the differences in my cultural background and their cultural background was really clear. So basically, I was just some hood nigga off the street. And why is he in here with us trying to earn an honest living? Shouldn't he be out somewhere trying to sell drugs or do something like that? And that was how they treated me. And they made it clear that that's how they treated me. Like, I would talk to these dudes at the lunch breaks and different things. Like, so what would happen, we would take our breaks, and there was a group of people that would go outside and they would smoke cigarettes and do whatever. And then they would, after the 15 minutes was up, they would come back inside. Like, everybody did it. Like, everybody in the whole plant took breaks at the same time. So when it went on breaks, me from the background that I'm in, like, I went over and hung out with the people that was smoking, right? Because like, that was my area. That's just what I did. And that's where all the conversation was. And, smoking and drinking pops, eating chips and all of this stuff. And I wasn't really sitting at these little picnic tables that they had set up with all these other fools. So I'm going over there with the people by the tree, standing up, chopping it up under the tree, talking about stuff during break time. And so it was clear that they didn't want me there. And I don't know if y'all can tell my personality or not, but I'm pretty outgoing. Like, I don't mind talking to people. Actually, I enjoy talking to people. But back then, I was even more, just like flamboyant, because I was new and I was like, man, what's going on? Like, man, why y'all over here? Why y'all ain't over there? What's the cliques like? What's the politics like? All of that stuff. I'm just like talking to people because I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this plant and what's what. Well, they let me know right away, the first day, that I was the first black person that some of these people had seen, like, in their lives. Like, they had heard about black people, but actually seen a black person in person. I was the first one. A lot of these people worked in rural areas. A lot of them weren't from the big city, and they saw black people on TV and all that stuff, of course, but they had never actually interacted with a black person. So they had a lot of questions for me, right? Like, there was a lot of stereotyping going on and a lot of different things. And one of the things that they thought was that they thought that I went to school for free. And they was like, the government paid for you to go to school for free. And in my mind, I'm like, why do you think I went to school for free? Like, where are you getting that from? Because I hustled real hard to be able to pay for tuition and stuff. But again, that's another story for another day. And they really didn't like the fact that I went to school for free, according to them. Now, of course, I didn't go to school for free, but they were convinced. And I'm like, well, you've never met a black person before in your life. I'm the first black person that you've ever actually even had a conversation with. What makes you think that you know everything about me? And they were very adamant. They were very, very clear of two things. Well, three things. Well, like the second two things are really connected to one another, but I guess they technically are three separate things. The first thing that they were sure about was that I went to school for free. The second thing that they were sure about was that the only reason I got hired at this job was because the government made this plant hire me. The plant, the factory, it would have hired someone else had it not been for the government stepping in and forcing them to hire me. And the third thing, which really is the second part of the second thing, is they firmly believe that there was a more deserving white engineer out there that really should have had the job that I had, and that I had somehow stolen his job because I went to school for free and the government made this plant hire me. And in the process, I robbed another more deserving white engineer of what was rightfully his. Okay, so now when I'm saying they, right, let me be very clear. When I'm saying they, I am talking about, I don't know, 95% of the people that worked on the floor. So they had this guy, I mean, his name was Brad. Yeah, I guess I'll just say his first name. This guy, Brad, right? He ran the fantasy football leagues and fantasy baseball and all that. So Brad was like the spokesman for the group, I guess you could say. So it was Brad, and he had about like maybe 4 or 5 flunkies, because he was over the inventory stuff in the warehouse. So basically, if you needed a part or you needed different things, you had to go through Brad. So he had like a little rank there. And to them, he was like a big deal because he had rank, and he could deny a request and all of this type of stuff. Well, he couldn't really deny a request like from us, from the programmers, because if we go down there and we go to the cage and we say, look, we need X, Y, and Z, then, because, you know, we're integrating with hardware and stuff, like he had to give it up, right? But for everybody else at the plant, like Brad had a lot of authority. So it was Brad, and he had his little lackeys that followed him around. And like, it was just like this little system set up, right? And the group that hung out by the tree at breaks got bigger and bigger and bigger once I was there. And there wasn't like multiple shifts, right? Like everybody worked 8 to 5. And then after that, the plant was closed. So it wasn't like a first shift, second shift, third shift, or any of that. I mean, we ended up having to move the thing, because they had a little softball diamond thing because they had a softball team. So we ended up just like going over there on the bleachers and all that stuff, because so many people started coming, and they were just like in a circle around me, like talking about stuff, asking me all types of questions. Why do black girls change their hair so often? And just like all types of stuff, right? So when I say they, I mean literally like 95% of the people on the floor is who I'm talking about when I say they. And they swore that I went to school for free. They swore that the government made this place hire me. And they swore that I took a job from a more deserving white engineer. But again, Brad was the spokesman, and y'all know how it goes. People want to say stuff, but they don't. And so you get these 1 or 2 people that will actually say what you want to say, but you scared to say, and then you rally behind that person. And so that's what it was like. And eventually more and more people started talking to me. Now, it wasn't like this in the programmer section, again, because that was more like academia. They was from the same like university background, so they didn't have the same hangups. Well, this one bum did. His name was Ray, but maybe I'll talk about him in another video. Oh my God. This talk about microaggression. He was like the undisputed king of microaggressions. But we'll come back to Ray like for another video. So all the people had all of these opinions about me, and they not even opinions in they mind. It was facts. And I was like, no, I did not go to school for free. Like, what do you like? Why do you think that? And honestly, no matter how much I told them I didn't go to school for free, that I had to work my way through school to pay for my tuition, like that whole idea of a black person working their way through school, they wouldn't accept it. Didn't want to believe it. But again, keep in mind how hood I am, right? And so I am actually, because of the way I dress, the way I talked, my hairstyles and different things, and my mannerisms especially, I was confirming a lot of the stereotypes that they had about me. And even though I told them I didn't get to go to school for free, like they wasn't hearing it, they didn't care, because to them, my whole demeanor confirmed everything that they thought about me before they ever met me and before they ever even met a black person. And so to them, I was the walking verification of black people getting it easy, being pampered by the government, and then stealing things that rightfully belong to someone else. And then that I didn't have any home training, no mannerisms. I didn't know how to act in public and all of this shit, because I was just being me. And so this got to be like a big thing. I was quite the ruckus when I went down on the floor. And so like they being the leadership, they sort of broke up the little break thing again because it was getting too big. You know, like all these things at the baseball diamond, like all this stuff was happening. So they started having staggering breaks. And if you in this section, you go to break at this time, so on and so forth, because they were like trying to get out ahead of it. Because obviously, once they saying all of this shit to me, I'm not just taking this lightly, right? Like I'm like, well, I made some mistakes. Let's put it like that. I made quite a few mistakes actually. And so my programming director, who was Will, he was like the head of engineering. The head of software engineering, because we also had some hardware engineering stuff too. So Will would come by and he called me in the office, and basically he was trying to get me to change my mannerisms so that I wouldn't be considered such a threat. Right, because I was really threatening to the majority of the workers at the factory. And so here's the thing. I was black. I was stereotypical black because I matched all of their black stereotypes, except for I was highly educated. I was extremely good at programming. And so that part they couldn't figure out, right? They couldn't figure out, like, how does he know how to do this stuff with these computers? Because white people are supposed to be smarter, more intelligent than black people. And how is he able to even do this job? Like, even if the government did pay for him to go to school, and even if the government did force us to hire him, when it's time to do work, he should be exposed, right? Like, this is what should finally expose him and get him out of here, because he shouldn't be able to do this work. Well, the fact that I was doing the work and I was really good at the work, that part really, it threw a monkey wrench in their plans and how they could view me and how they could view other black people. And so because of that, they didn't like the fact that he's really good at his job, and his job is the most technical, the most intellectually demanding job in the whole place. They did not like it. They wanted me to be a thug, a ruffian. I matched some of that, but I didn't match the other part. So I was this weird anomaly, like it didn't fit in their mind. And it was a lot of tension. They didn't like me being there. And they told me, he's like, man, like, I do not want you here. I'll be glad when you mess up. I'll be glad when they fire you. All of this stuff. We're going to get the white engineer that should have been here in the first place. Like all of this kind of stuff, right? Like talking to me about it. We just talking. I'm talking back. But of course, so what that did though, like I said, like in the evenings, like that made me more motivated to go home, to study, to be on top of my craft. I was learning shit to make sure that I stayed ahead of the game. Like they, honestly speaking, they couldn't fuck with me when it came to this programming stuff. I was just better than all of them, even the ones that had been there longer than me. But we'll talk about that later as well, maybe one of these days. Because, I was definitely a disruptive factor back then. So they didn't like me at all. Like the majority of the people didn't like me. And so Will, my supervisor, he calls me in and he's trying to explain to me how to be less threatening. Because here's the thing. They thought I went to school for free. They thought I stolen a job. They thought I was only there because the government forced them to hire me. They expected me to fail at my job, but I was really good at my job. So that really pissed people off. And then the other thing that really pissed people off is what I said earlier. The programming team got a lot of perks and a lot of special treatment. So at the end of the day, they did not like it that this nigger is here with his little thug ass ways and he's getting all these special perks and privileges and being treated better than us. They did not like it. And yes, a couple of them like called me nigger and all of this stuff. And when they was talking, they didn't like call me a nigger like you filthy nigger, stuff like that. They didn't do that. But they was like, well, how can a nigger afford to go to school? Like they just referred to black people as niggers. And when they referred to me, then of course they would refer to me as a nigger because I was the current nigger that they were talking to. And not all of them, like, I don't want to paint the picture that like it was horrible. I'm just saying, like, a lot of the people that talked to me and a lot of the questions that I got in the discourse back and forth, they definitely used the word nigger. But also I could tell, like, when they did, some of the other white people that agreed with them, they got uncomfortable, like saying that word out loud and all of this stuff. And but you know, a lot of the more aggressive ones, like Brad and his little lackeys, like they didn't care. And the funny thing, like, Brad and I ended up being, like, not good friends, but Brad and I, like, all of that shit ended up going away, and Brad and I ended up being, like, cool. And, like, he was always coming to my defense. Like, he was definitely a rival turned idol. It took like 2-3 years for that shit to happen, but over the course of time, that shit changed, right? But, like, in the beginning, like, this is how it was. But again, that's another story for another day. But Will called me into the office. I was too threatening. I was getting special treatment, and they didn't like the fact that this nigger running around here with this job that's handed to him that he don't deserve. We don't understand how he is doing the job, but we don't like it that he's getting all these perks and special treatment. And so one of the things Will was trying to do was to get me to modify my behavior, my appearance, and certain other things so that I could fit in less, be a less threatening, less imposing figure on the workforce. And I don't know why they didn't just let me go, right? Like, the state I was in, it was an at-will state. They could let me go for any reason. Well, I do know now. Like, back then I didn't know, but I did find out some years later, again, talking to Will. He's like, because I was too valuable. Like, the skills, I wasn't too valuable. The skill set that I possessed was too valuable. You can't just go pick a programmer off of a tree because you want one, right? It was a highly specialized, highly skilled profession. And again, I didn't know none of this at the time. I did not know how valuable what I did was, and I didn't know how hard it was to find. Because when I was in school and my coursework, and I was looking at all the other programmers like that were alongside me and learning shit, like, shit, a lot of them was like better than me. They was faster than me. They understood the stuff before I did it. And like, damn, like, man, like I said, I had to do a lot of studying, a lot of late nights, like just drilling this stuff into myself, going to my mentor, just like a lot, right? Again, I got there, but it took a lot of effort. And I seen a lot of other dudes alongside me. They was better than me. They just were better than me at programming, but I stuck with it. And to hear Will say years later that is just the skill set is too valuable, it is too hard to find programmers, and that's why I got a lot of the leeway. It made sense then, but at the time I didn't know what it was. So why am I saying this? Like, what is the point of all of this? Well, in that conversation with Will about me changing certain things and fitting in and wanting me to conform to certain ideas and quit being so rough around the edges, it brings up this whole thing called code switching. And code switching is, so it's this thing, right? It's popular. What? Popular. It's not popular. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. Everywhere you look, there is code switching. Everybody does it, every walk of life. And code switching is basically, there are TED Talks on it as well. Like, you can find TED Talks, you can Google it, all that stuff. It's everywhere. Code switching has nothing to do with me. I know my name is Optimus Code, but code switching has nothing to do with me. That is a term that represents this thing that I'm about to explain. And it's basically when you have people that have cultural differences, or it doesn't even have to be cultural differences. It could just be differences in their approach to life. And code switching is when one person changes what they would naturally do in order to make someone else comfortable. And so what you do is you switch from what you would naturally do, and you convert yourself into something that the other person would naturally do. So for example, like on this YouTube channel or in these videos, right? I talk to white people, and white people get nervous when I use the word nigger. They don't like it. Like, well, why do you got to say nigger on your channel? Or why do you got to say nigger in the video? Okay, it makes them uncomfortable, right? Well, Code switching is if me and my guys, say me and Hard 8, we having a conversation. I'm like, nigga, stop it. So that's what I would normally say, okay? But if we at work and around a bunch of white people, instead of me saying, nigga, stop it, I am expected to code switch. And when I make the switch, instead of saying, man, nigga, stop it, what I would say instead is something like, man, come on, bro, you know that ain't cool. Or something like that, right? Like it is something that my audience, the other people around me, I have to switch it and say something that they are more comfortable with. So the idea is to make yourself more appealing to the other people that are around. Don't be your actual authentic self. Now, to be clear, code switching is not one-sided. It's not only the black people that have to do the code switching, because the white people would code switch for me as well, right? Like in the workplace, everybody code switches for everybody, because like the job has certain requirements and the job has like certain standards of behavior and all of this stuff. And so like you can't come to the job, for example, as a white person. You can't come to the job talking about how many women you want to have sex with, right? Even though that may naturally be the conversation that's on your mind and what you want to talk about. When we at work, we don't care about your sex life or none of this stuff you talking about. We are here these 8 hours. We have agreed to give this time to our company. In exchange, they're paying us a fair wage, and the time that we're here belongs to them. So you leave you at the door. You have to present a version of you that matches the goals of the company. And then after work, say whatever you want, do whatever you want. But while you're here, everybody has to code switch for the greater good. So again, it's not just me that has to code switch. Everybody has to code switch. But here's the thing. The question isn't, does everyone code switch or not? Because everyone does. The question is really, who is expected to make the switch, right? In a given situation, you got this person and this person. Which one of them expects the other person to change their behavior to match them? And this is the part that I want to focus on, because the majority of my life, white people, not only white people, other people as well, like church people and like my parents, friends, and all of these different groups, like there has always been somebody who expected me to code switch to make them more comfortable. And I'm just gonna be honest with you, like, look at me how you want to, take this for how you want. I don't really care. I have zero interest in code switching to make a bunch of white random strangers on the internet more comfortable. I don't care. I will say nigger on my channel as often as I please, because I have no interest in making sure that you are comfortable with my content. I do not try to use YouTube as some big payment thing, whatever. I don't know how that whole stuff works. But at the end of the day, if my channel won't quote unquote grow because I say nigger or whatever, because I'm being my authentic self, and because I refuse to code switch on my channel or my Twitter account so that white people can be more comfortable, then great. I understand. I'm not the channel for you, and you can go somewhere else and do whatever you want. Also, there's a certain group of these uppity black people who also don't like the word nigger. They think it's demeaning, and they think it's holding us back, and a code, why don't you do this? Why don't you be more upstanding? At the end of the day, they want to know, why won't I code switch to make the white people more comfortable like them? I'm not doing it. That's why. I disagree with you that nigger is inferior. I disagree with you that saying nigger, or people that say nigger, or people that have a hood background, are somehow less than those without it. I disagree. So I am not ever going to match your ideals for me. I'm never going to match the plans that you have for me, because unless your plans for me include me being my own authentic self without expecting me to code switch to make you or other people more comfortable, then I am not the person for you. Thank you. I appreciate the effort and the look. Hey, appreciate it, but move on, because that's not me. I'm going to be my authentic self when it comes to these videos, when it comes to Twitter. Anywhere I am, where I'm interacting, I am going to be my authentic self, period. Now, there are some people that say, well, don't cuss, swearing and all of this stuff, that's the thing. But then there are other people that say, well, nigger itself is a cuss word. Well, of course, that's not true, but I get what they're saying is that that word, there's so much controversy around it, and there's so much negativity attached with it that we just prefer you not to use it at all. The same way we want you not to cuss on our show, well, we would like you not to use that word on our show. All right, cool, fair enough. I mean, well, everybody playing by the same rules. There will be times like I will happily appear on the podcast and, I will speak properly or whatever it is in the interest of that podcast or different stuff. Sure, I got no problem with that. I'm talking about me, though. Like me trying to put on the front like I don't use nigger regularly in my personal life, and in this public YouTube, Twitter persona where I'm just so above it. Again, because I don't look at it as inferior. So let me be clear. So I don't think not saying it or anything like that is being above it. I'm not above it, because I don't think it's anything to be above. I talk that way. I have been talking that way. I have no problem with it. It doesn't bother me. And I don't care if white people are not comfortable with me saying the word nigger. I don't care. I am not code switching for you. I'm done with that. I do that at work all day long, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I code switch. We all do. But in my own time, my personal time, that's it. So I get it. I understand. Well, your channel won't grow. Okay, great. Because my channel is out here. I'm representing these gaming streets. I don't know how many more times I can say that. I'm in the streets with this gaming stuff. The hardcore gaming streets. I don't represent the boardroom. I don't represent developer studios. I represent the streets where we give it to you in the purest form. I'm down in the trenches with the gamers where we keep it real and we be ourselves. This is not a business. This is not me trying to impress some corporations or so they can be happy advertising. None of that. None of it. At the end of the day, I'm going to be my authentic self. Given that, then, there are a whole lot of people that think that the console wars is dumb, and they think that the console wars is stupid and it's juvenile and it's infantile. And I did that when I was 10 and 11. Motherfucker, I don't give a fuck what you did when you was 10 or 11. I'm doing what I want to do because I want to do it, and I'm living by my own rules. If you think the console wars is trash and is beneath you and all of this stuff, then get away from here. Bye. Peace out. You are not welcome here. Don't follow me on Twitter. Don't come to my YouTube channel. Don't look at none of my content. None of that. I don't care. Bye. Peace out. You will not get me to stop console warring because you don't like it. I like it. It's fun. I enjoy it. I'm good at it. It pleases me. I like smashing these bots in the smithereens. I like dismantling fake narratives. I enjoy being a PlayStation hero, getting grimy out here in these gaming streets. So that's what you need to understand about me and the console war. I disagree with all of your postulations about this and Cğzo. I heard you. I got some smoke for you, Cğzo. We gonna meet up and we gonna holler about this. It's the same on both sides and all this. No, it's not. These fucking bots is out of control and they gonna get dealt with. And I'm just the person to do it. Me and the rest of the Pegasus Nation. It's going down. These bots are not gonna survive the way they've been surviving with this bullshit. It's coming to an end. It's gonna be peace, harmony, and truth out here in these gaming streets. Enough with these bot brain bullshit. So the console wars will live on. The console wars will continue to be discussed and interacted with by me. I am not code switching for you motherfuckers. I don't care. So again, if I haven't been clear up till now, let me say this as clear as I can. I am not going to code switch for you. I'm not going to choose words to make you more comfortable. I am not going to avoid words that make you uncomfortable. I am not going to stop engaging in the console wars because you think that somebody of my age should be doing this and that and this. All my life, I done had motherfuckers like you trying to tell me how I should live, what my life should be like, how I should behave, what I should do at this stage, what I should do at this stage. Fuck you. I decide what I like, I decide how I behave, and I decide what's appropriate for me and mine. I've been doing fine all of these years without your help. I don't need your help. I don't need your respect. I don't need your love. If you're not in these gaming streets dealing with these bots, then fuck you. Peace out. Move on. I only talk to the real. If anybody out there that's looking for the realness and the rawness in the purest form, then this is the channel for you. Anybody that want that fake, pampered, corporate bullshit, put on the act to try to look good, pristine, clean, all that, fuck that. That shit is you can find it everywhere all over YouTube. Go get it. It's for you. All of that stuff. You won't have no shortages of places like that to spend your time. Now, that's not to say that we gonna be negative, right? Because a lot of people try to mix those two. They try to be like, well, if you being raw and real and uncut, that's the same thing as negative. Again, I disagree with that. I disagree that my lifestyle and my hood background and hood culture is somehow inferior or negative. I disagree. The people that think that way, you are the fucking problem because you think you better than people like me and you think that you are above people like me. Well, you're not. Fuck you and your high-minded bullshit. I will continue the console war as I see fit because it is my channel and it is my right to choose what to do for my life and me and my family. I will retire soon with lots and lots of money, lots and lots of accomplishments. So at the end of the day, if I don't do another thing right now, I have already accomplished so much in my lifetime that me and mine, we are taken care of for generations to come. I am content with the choices that I made. Look, I made some mistakes. Don't let me even try to sell y'all some shit to where everything was flawless, because it was not. I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't have empathy back then. I thought it was just me against the world, and I didn't like these fucking questions and challenging me and shit. But again, I made some mistakes. That's true. I'm not above admitting when I'm wrong and trying to improve where I need to improve. But I just fundamentally disagree that hood street backgrounds are somehow inferior or less desirable than some of this other shit. I know there are plenty of people that do. So for those people, I mean, peace. I got you. I hear you. Peace out. It's all good. No harm, no foul. But for me and mine, I'm in these PlayStation streets. I'm in these gaming streets. And I'm talking to those who want authenticity, those who want the real. You tired of these two-faced motherfuckers putting one face to you, but then when they get off to themselves, they're a completely different person. And they accuse me of being like a different person on Twitter than he is. And fuck that. I am the same everywhere. All of me represents all. Let me put it this way. I represent myself in all of the places where people can access me, and I don't change one for the other. I am who I am. I do a lot of comedy. Comedy is a natural part of me as a person, and the comedic side of me comes out on Twitter. Absolutely. I do a lot of things like with tech stuff. Sometimes that comes out on Twitter, but the majority of the time, shit on Twitter, I'm talking shit, having fun, dismantling these bots, getting these console war jokes in, because I have learned it is impossible to have a serious conversation on Twitter. So I don't even try anymore. So the medium allows really quick, really fast tweets and things, not long, in-depth conversations. So, you know, that's what I do. And it is fun and I enjoy it, and I'm going to keep doing it. So when you want that fake bullshit, you don't come here. But when you want it raw, when you want it real, when you want truth, when you want accuracy, and you want all of that in the purest form, that's when you come here to check out me in these gaming streets. I'm telling you, I'm grimy in these gaming streets, and I don't care about that bullshit that y'all talking about. I don't think it's inferior. I don't think it's beneath me. I don't think that you are better than me. I don't think that your choices are better than mine. None of that bullshit. I will continue the console war because it's what I enjoy, and I do not need people like you trying to decide for me what's appropriate for me, my life, and my family. We have done just fine. Peace. And there it is. All right, so any questions? Any questions? All right. Go ahead and comment on the video if you got something that you feel you need to say after watching this video. You can get at me on Twitter. You know, we keep the conversation going there. If you got something you feel that you need to say, then go ahead and get it off your chest. Hey, but if you one of them real ones, go ahead and like the video if you enjoyed the content. You know how we do over here. PlayStation needs a hero. PlayStation has a hero in these gaming streets. This bot brain foolishness is not going to endure. I'm telling you that right now. It's over with. I'm trying to tell you, sick of this foolishness from these buffoons. Hey, another thing, if you're enjoying all the content, man, go ahead and subscribe. Like I'm telling you, PlayStation needs a hero in these gaming streets. PlayStation has a hero in these gaming streets. Like I told y'all before, PlayStation, they don't need no hero where games are being developed. They got that covered. PlayStation does not need a hero in the boardroom where business is conducted. They got all of that covered. PlayStation does not need a hero in the media. They got all of that stuff covered, man. They firing on all cylinders. But what PlayStation does need is a hero in these gaming streets. Because, you know, it's grimy out here. You know what I'm talking about? And, hey, I got that for you. We are not afraid to stand against the collective that is known as the bot brain. Go ahead and subscribe. We got good stuff for you.